God's blessings to everyone. This is a DGHradio.com news and information news update for the United States and the world, and I'm reporter KKH reporting the news for Saturday, October 4th, 2025, covering the latest developments from across the United States and the world. Congress departed Washington without a funding deal, ensuring the partial federal shutdown stretches at least into next week. The Senate failed to advance competing stopgap proposals and adjourned until Monday afternoon. Hundreds of thousands of federal employees remain furloughed or working without pay as museums, permits, and routine services stall. Airports remain open, but delays are possible if staffing strains worsen. Analysts warn the economic hit grows the longer the closure persists, even if initial damage looks modest. Within the Republican Party, a rift has opened over strategy. A group of GOP moderates is publicly cautioning the White House that hardball tactics, like freezing or threatening to freeze targeted funds in Democratic-led states during the lapse, could backfire. They argue the approach hardens opposition and complicates the bipartisan votes needed to end the standoff. Democrats call the freezes punitive. Moderates worry the public will see the shutdown as a partisan gambit the longer it lasts. At the Federal Reserve, officials are striking a more cautious tone about additional interest rate hikes. Policymakers emphasize they want time to assess the full effects of prior tightening before taking further action. Dallas Fed President Lori Logan said the labor market may need to cool further to ensure inflation recedes, but she also acknowledged uncertainty around the balance of risks. Markets have interpreted recent remarks as a signal that the Fed is nearing the end of its rate hike cycle, while reiterating that any decision remains data dependent. Energy and safety are in focus across Southern California after a major fire at Chevron's El Segundo refinery. Flames and smoke lit the sky Thursday evening before crews contained the blaze. There were no reported worker injuries, but the incident damaged a key processing unit, and the plant is operating at reduced capacity during repairs. The refinery is a critical supplier for the region, particularly jet fuel for Los Angeles International Airport, raising the prospect of temporary price pressures as supply routes adjust and investigators determine the cause. In Germany, operations have resumed at Munich Airport after multiple drone sightings forced precautionary shutdowns. Authorities temporarily halted takeoffs and landings while federal police investigated. No injuries were reported. The incidents highlight the growing challenge of low-cost, high-impact disruptions from unauthorized drones near critical infrastructure. Airports across Europe are reviewing detection coverage, response protocols, and potential counter-drone technologies as regulators push for tighter enforcement and remote ID requirements. Turning to Eastern Europe, Ukraine says Russian drones struck two passenger trains almost back-to-back at a station in Shuska in the northern Sumy region near the Russian border. Officials report at least one person killed and dozens injured. Rail cars burned as emergency crews evacuated passengers. Kyiv condemned what it called deliberate attacks on civilian transport and described the pattern as a double tap, with a second strike hitting amid rescue efforts. Moscow denies intentionally targeting civilians. The assault comes as Russia intensifies strikes on rail and energy infrastructure ahead of winter. In the Middle East, Israel deported 137 activists to Turkey after intercepting an aid flotilla that organizers said aimed to reach Gaza. Israeli authorities, who enforce a naval blockade off the territory, escorted the boats to port and processed passengers for removal. The operation drew sharp reactions. Activists and some governments criticized the interdictions and alleged mistreatment in custody. Israeli officials defended the blockade as a security necessity and said detainees were treated appropriately. Additional deportation flights are expected as legal processing continues. Iran, meanwhile, carried out 6 executions in cases it linked to alleged plots on behalf of Israel, drawing condemnation from rights advocates who question due process and transparency in security-related prosecutions. Tehran has intensified such cases amid regional tensions, typically asserting foreign intelligence ties. Western governments and UN experts are likely to seek clarity on evidence and trial standards even as broader diplomatic issues complicate engagement. In Japan, the ruling Liberal Democratic Party chose Sanae Takaichi as its new leader, positioning her to become the country's first female prime minister, pending a parliamentary vote. A conservative lawmaker and ally of the late Shinzo Abe, Takaichi inherits tough headwinds, inflation pressure on households, demographic decline, and rising security risks in East Asia. She has signaled support for a stronger U.S. alliance and higher defense spending, alongside pledges to narrow Japan's gender gap. Markets are watching how she balances stimulus and fiscal discipline. Back in the United States, music executive Sean Diddy Combs received a 50-month federal prison sentence after a jury convicted him on 2 counts related to transporting individuals across state lines for illegal sexual activity. The judge also imposed supervised release and financial penalties, citing the gravity of the conduct described at trial. Combs' attorneys say they will appeal. The outcome reverberates through the entertainment industry's broader reckoning with abuse and accountability. Global food affordability remains under strain, but a closely watched gauge showed a modest monthly decline. The UN Food and Agriculture Organization's World Food Price Index eased in September, with lower costs for some cereals, vegetable oils, meat, and sugar outweighing higher dairy prices. Even with the recent dip, FAO notes that extreme weather and geopolitical tensions continue to inject volatility into global supply chains, keeping prices sensitive to disruptions. Severe weather is making news in Northern Europe. Storm Amy swept across Ireland, the UK, and parts of Scandinavia with destructive winds and heavy rain. Authorities reported at least 1 weather-related death in Ireland and widespread power outages across affected regions. Ferries, rail lines, parks, and some roads shut down as crews worked to remove fallen trees and restore electricity. Meteorologists warn that storms of this intensity are becoming more frequent, underscoring the need for resilient infrastructure and emergency preparedness. These and other issues are of great concern within the islands. What do you think are some good solutions? Let us know your thoughts by texting your comments to 1-315-898-1449. You can also join our WhatsApp group and get the news, weather, and other insightful information delivered right to your smartphone. To join, text JOIN to 1-315-898-1449. Please include your name in the text message. You will receive a call to verify your request. I'm your reporter, KKH, signing off for DGHradio.com. Remember, KKH and DGH, together we provide key facts, keen judgment, and honesty as we deliver groundbreaking headlines. Ciao.